Hello there! Welcome! I'm John Merriman, and this is your Tuesday morning guitar song. I was in the kitchen the other day talking to my daughter, and we were talking about the life of geniuses, what it's like to be a genius. And I was saying that the life of a genius can often be very messy and turbulent. And I used Billy Joel as an example. Well, my daughter kind of stopped and turned to me looking perplexed and said, "Billy Joel is a genius?" And I was stunned. I said, "Yeah, of course, Billy Joel's a genius. Doesn't everybody think Billy Joel's a genius? Do you think Billy Joel's a genius?" I mean, I look at all the different styles of music he's done, and it all seems to be a genius level. He does those bluesy Ray Charles songs like New York State of Mind, or the 50s rock and roll like Uptown Girl, and all those great emotional ballads he did. It all says genius to me. And then there was Attila. Attila was one of Billy's first bands. He was 20 years old, still living on Long Island, and he started a band with a friend. It was a duo, and it was a heavy metal psychedelic band. If you can imagine Billy Joel doing heavy metal music, this is Attila. They had a record contract and they produced one record. Here, I want to show you the record cover. Let's put it up on the screen here. That's Billy Joel on the right, and that's his friend on the left, and he is surrounded by dead cow carcasses. It kind of sets the tone for this album, this heavy metal album. Well, the rock critics of the day, the ones really in the know, called this album the worst rock and roll album ever recorded, if not the worst album ever in recorded music. And that's almost a direct quote. It was a real bonk. It was, even a genius can have a bonk. So we'll give Billy one bonk. But let's go back to the start, where this genius all started. Billy was born in 1949 in the Bronx, and his family moved to Levittown, New York, and that was the first American suburb. It was about 20 miles east of New York on Long Island, in the middle of Long Island there. Billy's father was a classical professional pianist in Europe. He was a Jew, and he escaped Nazi Germany and made his way to the United States. That alone could be a whole program. His mother was a Jew from England, and they met here and had two kids, Billy and a daughter. And I think her name is Judith, but if I'm wrong, somebody correct me down in the comments. Now, at 4 years old, Billy's mother started him in piano lessons. And these were not the typical suburban piano lessons. This was not Miss Smithers coming up from down the block and sitting with the kids for an hour. These were very serious classical lessons. And Billy's teachers were some of the best classical pianists in the New York area because of the connections with his father being a classical pianist. And Billy did very well at them. And then at 8 years old, Billy's father split. He left behind his mother and two kids and went back to Europe. This had a profound effect on Billy, and his whole life he had something to prove to the world. And also, Levittown, New York at that time was a very tough neighborhood. And Billy was always being teased constantly for being the sissy piano kid. So to defend himself and to prove his manhood to the world, he took up boxing. He worked at it, and he worked at music at the same time, and Billy Joel became a very good boxer. He boxed on the amateur Golden Glove circuit around Long Island and New York all through his teenage years, and that is not an easy circuit to box in. He did very well, almost undefeated, but then he had an injury late in his teenage years, and that put an end to it. Now, in music, his first big aha moment came when he was 15 years old. He was watching television, and who comes on television? The Beatles. He saw the Beatles for the first time, and he was shocked. He saw some young men who looked just like him. They were working class stiffs, as he says. He didn't think this even existed. He didn't think you could make a living playing rock and roll. It was right then he quit his classical piano lessons and he joined some cover bands around Long Island. Plus, he played piano in restaurants and clubs around Long Island for 3 to 4 nights a week to help his mother make ends meet. Billy Joel's reputation as a good musician started to spread around Long Island. He was very busy, and then he joined a band called the Hassles. And the Hassles were very well known on Long Island in New York, and they were kind of regionally famous. They did a couple albums. They could not break out of the New York area, though. And when they broke up, him and the drummer formed that band Attila that we already talked about. That was a disaster. But as I said, Billy Joel's reputation was spreading through the area as being a great keyboard player and a great vocalist. And you know, you don't get as big as Billy Joel is today without having a few heroes in your life. People who really stand up for you and really support you. His first hero was a man named Artie Ripp. And Artie Ripp owned a record company and a production company called Family Productions. He saw in Billy then what we see in Billy now. He saw the potential of Billy and he signed him. He signed him to his record company and to his production company. He sank a lot of money into the young Billy Joel to try to develop him as an artist. He put about $500,000 in helping Billy Joel develop himself through gigs and songwriting. And Billy Joel finally recorded his first album as a solo artist, Billy Joel. It's not very well known. It's called Cold Spring Harbor. It had so many technical difficulties in the recording of it that when it was finally released, it was considered a disaster because it just didn't sound very good, even though artistically it was really, really very good. And so it was considered a failure. But Artie Ripp stayed with Billy Joel. He really had faith in them. And finally, they caught the eye of Columbia Records. And Artie Ripp handed Billy Joel off to Columbia Records. And that's where it started. Then boom, 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 those great Billy Joel albums came out one after the other with all those great Billy Joel hits. Now, Billy Joel in his life, he was the messy genius. He had so many ups and downs. He was cheated by business associates. He went broke. He had substance abuse problems. He had failed marriages. But he was Billy Joel the fighter. He's the world's nicest guy, and he's one of the world's toughest guys. He fought his way through everything and became stronger for it in the end. And now Billy Joel still tours, kind of limitedly, but he has a permanent residency at Madison Square Garden in New York. Once a month, he plays a sold-out show. So if you ever get to New York, make sure to get a ticket to see Billy Joel. It's once a month at Madison Square Garden. So he's had so many accomplishments in his life, and now Billy Joel is the topic of your Tuesday morning fun fact. Here's your Tuesday morning fun fact. Billy Joel through high school was boxing and working at music for 3 to 4 nights a week. He just didn't have time to do his schoolwork. He was a good student, he was well-intentioned, and everybody liked him, but he just couldn't get it done, and he dropped out of high school. Billy Joel was a high school dropout. But he did provide us with one of the greatest high school dropout quotes of all time. When he was talking to a teacher who was very concerned about him, he said, "Hell, I'm not going to Columbia University. I'm going to Columbia Records." Well, he had no way of knowing it at the time. He was just a teenager, but he did end up signing years later with Columbia Records. And 25 years later, he finally got all his coursework together, he submitted it, and he finally ended up being awarded his high school diploma. So Billy, me and your mother are so proud of you. You can finally, with your high school diploma, go out and start looking for a real job now. So there's your Tuesday morning fun fact. Let's go back for our guitar song today to 1977. It's off the album The Stranger. Please don't leave. I'll be right back. thank you so much for all you do. Thanks for sharing the show. Thanks for liking the show. Thanks for supporting music in your local communities. Thank you for being the wonderful person that you are. And thanks for coming back next week to see me. And remember, you're never ready for your day without a song in your heart. Bye now.